Fellowship, and Vic stands for Vaccine Information Coalition. You're listening to Progressive Radio Network, the most listened to commercial-free and truth radio program in the world. My name is Renee, and the title of our show is What in the Cell is Going On? We're on every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, which could be accessed live on prn.fm or later on the front page of our vacinfo.org website. We are so blessed again to have Miss Kate Shemirani. Hello there, Miss Kate.
Hi, how are you? It's so good to be back.
I am so excited. I just really thought we cut off last week, and I just thought we could keep going and going. Now you have so much wisdom.
Gosh, well, it's all happening in the UK here. It's,
yes.
It's kind of a mix between Stalin's Russia, communist China, and George Orwell's 1984.
Oh boy, that's crazy. I did invite our co-host, Dr. True Ott, because I know he and you are just going to love each other. Dr. True, are you on?
I am here. Thanks for having me on again.
Dr. True, meet Kate Shemirani.
Hi, good evening, Dr. True. Nice to meet you.
I've heard so much about you. Thank you, Kate.
All good, I hope, as we say in the UK.
Oh, it's always good. Always good. Golly, yeah. So the first shots have been issued there in this war. I mean, the first deadly shots. What's going on there in the UK as far as the vaccine rollout?
We have the Pfizer vaccine, which even though the phase 3 trials actually haven't been done, and they're still being done, and there's been a Pfizer executive has come out and said, former Pfizer scientist, I believe it was, that he even spoke out against this and said that their minimum for the phase 3 was 26 months, and they haven't done that. So we had some rubbish propaganda on the news where they took a 90-year-old woman who didn't look 90. I'd like to point out at this stage that I've been an aesthetics nurse practitioner for over a decade, and I very much can judge people's ages by their faces, their necks, their hands. If this woman was 90, I'll eat my hat. And the member of staff that was doing this vaccination, it was the oddest thing I've ever seen. I've done many injections, intramuscular, subcut, and the technique, I've never seen it done like that. And of course, if we're in a time of this deadly pandemic, then one would expect this nurse to be wearing gloves, to be following a certain protocol, but not because it would be body fluids, not at all. And then I understand there was someone else called William Shakespeare as well, which is quite bizarre. So they did actually talk about, doing this vaccine and this lady being 90. And then I understand it on CNN News. There was, I think it was a doctor had come out and said not to be alarmed should people in care homes begin to die after the vaccine. And that was just because they were going to die anyway. So one would have to question, this is our National Health Service, and they're already saying that it's struggling financially. A lot of it's been sold off, it's privatized, blah-de-blah. Then not, negating the importance of our elderly and in society, and that is the true judge of a civilized society, taking care of our elderly, our young, and our vulnerable. But why would one give a vaccine to people that are going to die very soon anyway? It's kind of counterproductive. And also, one would have to question whether they were indeed of a physical state, a well-being to actually have a vaccination. Would we give it to people who were physically vulnerable as well? So it's quite bizarre. And then we have all the propaganda as well. We have, I personally don't have a TV license nor watch The Idiot's Lantern. I don't read the newspapers. They're like comics. They make the National Enquirer look, serious. But it's all constant propaganda. I was interviewed by Sky News for 2 hours. They put a 20-minute segment on, but it was actually very good. They said, the only bit that I said was no vaccine is ever proven safe, no vaccine ever proven effective, no two vaccines tested for their efficacy. And of course, they put that on, and then they put this whole news segment on about the anti-vaxxers, and they had the Prime Minister saying we were all nutters, which is, it's outrageous, really. But now we have all the nurses all saying they don't want to have it. They're very scared and they shouldn't be forced to have it. Well, if they shouldn't be forced, nor should the population, what makes them get the get out of jail free card? So this is all kind of going on. And then we have the BBC, the bullcrap channel, the BBC, who has asked me to be involved in a TV program that's due to be aired in February to talk about vaccinations, anti-vax, the dangers. It's a big TV program, a big program that's being done with lots of research. I did actually comment to the young woman that's making it, the reporter, and I said, why February? If you have the vaccination, you might not be around to see it aired. So this is all going on right now, and they're going down in 5-year increments. So they're wanting to do 90-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 75, 70, those that are frontline workers, and those with comorbidities, the very people really that have already got immunocompromised bodies. So should they be having anything? But it is a big propaganda push, and I would be as bold as to state that their little plan is falling flat on its face, because on YouTube, all the comments to the Sky interview that I gave, I'd say 99% of them were all, we're not having the vaccine, I'm not having the vaccine, I don't trust the government. So I don't think that the people are as scared or as up for this vaccine as what the government is trying to push. So of course they're now making it that you won't be able to go here, you won't be able to go to the football, you won't be able to do this. So now they're relying on coercion. Exactly.
Well, I wanted to bring to the show today some what I found out over the weekend, if that's okay, April, because it's really important information. This Dr. Lyons Weiler finally published his definitive study on vaccination in the children's arena, a very comprehensive report that the CDC refused to ever do in Atlanta. But this report, I sent it on to you, April. This is golden. It's absolutely incredible. And Dr.
I actually added it to my research link, the actual study that he performed from Dr. Paul Thomas's pediatric office. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he came out so strongly against this whole vaccine, specifically Pfizer's mRNA based. It has to be kept at minus 40 degrees, minus 70, and explained what at all. He said it's a pathogenic primer. There's no doubt about it. He says mark this down. All the research shows that 21% of the people taking this will die. It's simply that amazing.
Please, can you send me that study after the show? Please, could you email it to me?
Yes,
yeah, it's on our
Sky.
Yeah, and also I have it on the website, Kate. I just added it this morning after Dr. True sent me the actual study. It's on the research link. It's the very top thing on the research link, and it's titled Vaxxed versus Unvaxxed Study. And if you open up the PDF, it's the actual whole science document of what he discovered with graphs and everything. It's amazing. It's amazing. But also somebody just emailed from the Child Health Defense Group that a healthcare worker was getting the vaccination, the COVID vaccine, and the vaccine is a white fluid. It was literally dropping down her arm from the injection, a white fluid.
Yes. That's what I wanted to talk about in depth.
That's quite interesting, because you got to wonder, I did a radio show with Carrie Madej, and Carrie's, a good friend, and we were talking about this, Dr. Calvin, myself, Kerry, and Dr. Corbett. And this is, when it's frozen at that level, and a lot of the doctors in the UK, they don't have the facilities to store this and to give it, and the amount of time that it has to be given in. And so once it changes into a gel-like state, what is this? This has to be these hydrogel particles, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
True, what were you going to say?
Yeah, what Dr. Lyons and this, I interviewed this Dr. Igor Shepard, who just fired as he was the health safety director in Wyoming. he did a speech and he came on and says, "Beware, this vaccine is deadly." He was fired over it, okay, but he's got the documents. I mean to tell you, this is amazing. Here's the basic. No, whether it's AstraZeneca or Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson, it's all based on the same structure. Let me just explain real quickly what, again, the experts are telling me and see if it doesn't make sense. Okay, first of all, there is, like most typical vaccines, you have either an attenuated or a live virus or bacteria, as the case may be, for the body to the whole premise is for the body to make antibodies against it. That's the whole concept from the days of Edward Jenner, right? What's markedly missing in this vaccine is no COVID-19 or what's called SARS-CoV-2 virus structures. This is huge because you really can't identify SARS-CoV-2 in any of the victims anyway. The whole PCR testing is just designed to test for what the body produces in the way of natural COVID-19 or coronavirus structures that are a wide range of viruses. I've been saying this since February. It's documented. That's the PCR test is designed not to be specific for a SARS-CoV-2. Now, what they're really injecting, now here's the key thing, and this is what's going to show up more and more in the UK, Kate. You've got to understand it and keep an eye on this and keep us informed because you're the eyes and ears there in the UK. And listen, what it's designed to do is to the messenger RNA, the mRNA part of this, is designed to go into your genome and alter that section of the genome wherein you produce. Your body manufactures what's called exosomes. Exosomes and coronaviruses are one and the same thing. So what it does is it blocks your ability to make these viruses. Thus, you will pass a COVID-19 PCR test. Okay, this is where it's so backward. Now, the same exact mechanism that does that, or what's called their viral protein structures in the mRNA, the messenger RNA, it basically does the exact same thing that the human immunosuppressant virus or HIV does. Why is it called immunosuppressant virus? See, HIV, man-made chimera virus. This is nothing natural about the HIV. Nothing natural about SARS-CoV-2, folks. It's all lab created. It's designed to go in and attack your very genome that keeps your immune system strong.
As I understand this, from understanding everything I was taught in nursing school and biology, I threw out the window when I got cancer and I did the Gerson therapy. That was a big awakening for me. And just from understanding that, that it invades the cell, it hijacks the ribosome, it then, the protein making machinery, it then makes new viral components to teach your body to attack the viruses. And like you're saying, my way of putting that together in my head is that viruses and exosomes are one and the same. So for them to do that will literally mean that you're going to attack your own exosomes, or you're not going to make your own exosomes, which means the body has no way of doing its own cleanup when it's so toxic. And, the exosomes come out the cell. That's what people call viruses.
Exactly, Kate. You're
and so
exactly
you
right
have
on.
no way of making these exosomes come out, soak up the toxins, take it down to your immune cells. And that's where absolutely you can see that first part of your immune system is just switched off. And that makes way for the second part, which is the cytokine storm. And you can just see this unfolding. This is going to unfold in rapid time, and they're going to call it COVID-19.
That's right. And then they're going to really jack up the 5G, the 60 gigahertz. Yeah, and so people are going to start dropping dead like in Wuhan. And of course, it's going to be blamed on the people not wearing masks, not getting the vaccines. It's all part of the Rockefeller Operation Lockstep on our front page.
Well, that's his plan. That's
exactly.
That's, we have God on our side here.
This is true. We do. True.
So, yeah, I'm just going to say both Dr. Lyons, Weiler, and Dr. Shepard, this is a time delay thing, okay? Very few people will get really ill initially, but look for it in about 6 months to 18 months is when it really starts to affect your immunosuppressant structures. And then people will start getting ill over, getting pneumonias they never had before, basically dying from an advanced form of AIDS, where you just have no ability to fight any infection. And that's
isn't it a two-part series? Don't they have to get a second shot?
Actually,
yeah,
there's
they do.
more like
They're saying that
parts.
here. You get the second one, and
I don't know how long after, but yeah, they're supposed to get a second shot. That's really going to do the major damage.
I have to say, there is that kind of again. This is my personal opinion. When I started to research what happened with the veterans in the military when they received the anthrax vaccine, which had the squalene in it, and then they suffered from they not only suffered from intravascular coagulation, disseminated intravascular coagulation, heart attacks, pulmonary embolism, they also were getting this non-pathogenic pneumonia. Lots of them were getting it and getting really, really sick. And this is in chapter 5 of Carl Schwartz, the nanotech exec's book. Amazing chapter.
We just had him on our radio show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know Carl, and and of course, his son suffered. So when I started looking at that, and I spoke to a guy from the medical side of the vets in this country, and I was talking to Dr. Kevin Corbett about this, he worked on the very first AIDS ward in the UK. And we know that AIDS, as you've said, HIV was manufactured, but of course AIDS was leukocytopenia, which is just when you're so toxic, you can no longer fight anything. And this, they chose, I think it was 28 or 29 pre-existing diseases, and said that they were AIDS. And so these patients would come in, and because they were HIV positive, they might just have like a cough, which we would just go, oh, it's a cough. But they didn't. They said, oh, you've got HIV, it's AIDS. And they were giving them very high doses of IV Cetrin, which would then wipe out their bone marrow. And they literally went downhill quickly. Well, we were talking about all of this. And I said, it's interesting that all the military are given so many vaccines so quickly and sent into environments which, and I'm just going to say this, if it's offensive to people, then I'm sorry, be offended, because this is what I think. They were illegal wars, and our own men were sent over to be slaughtered, and a lot of 2 million innocent men, women, and children, non-combatants, were slaughtered on the orders of Tony Blair, and he should be held accountable for war crimes. Tony Blair, who was our prime minister. But what you saw was all these vets getting all these vaccines when they were in the military, and many of them commit suicide now. And it's a huge amount in the US. I can't remember, it was 20 something a week, or was it 20 something a day? It was a lot. And I said to Kevin, one has to ask, a lot of them saw things, a lot of them didn't even go to active service. They didn't even go to Iraq, but they suffered the same illnesses. And they tried to say it was the depleted uranium, but they didn't even go there and they got sick. So, you have to start asking, is it like the universal soldier thing? Did they inject them all so that they would go and do something and then they would die shortly after? Or they would certainly get sick enough that would be it. It's like wastage. Inject them to get rid of them. Because it kind of looks like that. It doesn't make sense. It can't be part of a eugenics program that you would do it to your military. So, everything's kind of an inversion of the truth. And now everything I see going on, and of course, the whole lie that is allopathic medicine, because it is a lie. It's all a big, huge lie. Right from, we know that you don't catch a virus, but it was created in order for them to sell us, you need a vaccine. And then it's a lock and load. You're injected with all of these things that are going to make you have autoimmune diseases, cancer. They're going to make you so sick that you're then going to need all of the other healthcare in the hospitals that they provide. And you're going to pay for it all the way along and die and pay for your disposal. And in the UK, I believe the NHS is the second biggest employer in the world, because that's a big part of the economy. So it's all just going round and round and round. And I was, you know, I used to believe in organ donor, and I remember collecting a patient from the intensive care unit when I worked in theatres to go down for organ harvest. A woman in her early 40s who'd had a brain hemorrhage. And then when I found out that there's no such thing as brain dead, it's a complete lie. And, you know, people who they wanted to turn the ventilators off at organ harvest before that have grown up, had children, gone to college. Because, of course, it makes perfect sense. If you were brain dead, your heart wouldn't be beating. It's as simple as that. And the whole thing that is medicine is just one big lie. And I think, you know, we're on the cusp now of it's do or die. And if we get through all of this, I think this is an opportunity for everything to be thrown out and we restart.
True?
Yes, hello. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I wish that's what the book said.
Rip it out and throw it out and start again. You know what? Honestly, I've got to the stage now where I think, let them be offended. I always say it's the last chapter of James. If you know it to be true and you don't say it, then it's a sin. That's why I'm saying it. That whole system, I worked in emergency care and trauma. Okay, we need that. But even some of that we don't need. We need that. No. Obstetrics. When you have all the obstetrics there, what do? They just, most of the births, even in America, are from cesarean sections.
Yeah.
It's bad for the baby. It's bad for the mama.
Our bodies are designed to have babies. I had my last one in bed by myself. Our breasts are designed to feed them.
Bedroom.
Yep.
So and to think that you need a vaccine. I was in a supermarket tonight. Everybody waddling around, you know, big fat backsides, and they're buying all their garbage. And thankfully, they don't eat all the organic fruit and veg. There's always plenty of that for me. And they're walking around with these face rags on their, you know, catching all their bacteria, worrying about this boogeyman, COVID-19, and yet they're fat and eating rubbish food.
I know.
And they think an injection's going to help them or a pill. Yeah. It's absolute. It's almost my people shall die through lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge, absolutely. Yeah, we're walking through the book of Revelation right now, sweetheart, unfortunately. Or fortunately, however you look at it. I look at it fortunately.
I stand before God. He decides whether I'm staying or going at this period. Yeah, and I'm going to be like everyone else in line.
Yep. What's that, True?
I was just going to ask if you've heard what's going on in Australia. I have quite a large listening audience down there on my radio broadcast, and I've got some strong feedback. The vaccinations there and their test trials have been halted, I understand, because in coming and looking at their blood work, they're showing HIV positive tests from taking the vaccine.
Yeah, my family all live in Australia. My parents, my sister. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
So they're asking me, they're saying it's a false positive, but I said not really, because the same mechanisms that the proteins inherent in SARS-CoV-2, which are the basically activators in this vaccine, would give you the same symptoms as HIV and also the same mechanism. So Dr. Luc Montagnier, his Nobel Prize, he's a colleague of mine. He actually received the Nobel Prize by proving, and he's, you know, all the origins of HIV and where it came from. He stunned the world really this last summer by declaring that SARS-CoV-2, the man-made chimera virus, is virtually identical to the HIV virus. And he says he predicted that when this starts really being put into people, because this is really important. In 6,000 cadavers analyzed throughout the European Union, and this has been so absolutely hidden from the media. 6,000 cadavers looked at and searched on. There is no novel virus showing up. Lots of other regular coronaviruses, they said, but zero SARS-CoV-2, no novel virus. So again, it doesn't
exist, does it? Dr. Corbett said, he said it beautifully. He said, it's like giving you here's a load of fish bones. That's your fish. And he said, you don't even know if there's any bones missing. That's your fish. That's it. And you know, he's involved in having the Dresden paper retracted, and it doesn't the part of the sequence that was missing. They just pulled it off the internet and slotted it in. So it's a computer virus. It's not even been proven to be anywhere.
And that goes back to my whole. And I reviewed all of the CDC's updated PCR. I mean, they want to make people and doctors and hospitals, technicians, believe that the PCR test is specific to SARS-CoV-2. But when you actually read their instruction sheet and follow through on their own postings on the website, it's clearly all generated by a computer program driven by artificial intelligence. They have zero what they call LOD, limits of detection. There is zero actual LOD of the virus. It's all computer driven, every bit of it. It's not science whatsoever. It's completely junk science, and they sure have people believing it. That's the amazing reality. They're not listening.
So really, if they're having us
laureate.
looking over here to the right, we're all looking, you know, at the Great Wizard of Oz, but none of us are looking behind the curtain what's really going on. So I love when they have a huge big event happening over on the right hand side. They're normally shafting you up the rear on the left hand side. So there's something else, and it's kind of all coming out in the press now, and we already know anyway. But you know, communism. They have members of the Communist Party in all of the big businesses, in government, everywhere, and it literally is. You know, our wonderful Prime Minister, who's now dead, Margaret Thatcher, said they were the first government who successfully pushed back socialism, the first cousin of communism. And that's what we see happening now. It's communism is literally being pushed in right before our eyes.
Well, that's great that you should say that. Again, check out, I can send you the link if you give me your email address after the show.
Well,
but
yeah, please do.
Dr. Igor Shepard, his story's amazing. He's the fellow I was telling you about that just came forward, was fired from his position in Wyoming. He came to this country from the Soviet Union in 1993, became a naturalized citizen. I talked to him on the phone this weekend, and I'm telling you, this guy knows the Gulag Soviet model. I mean, he saw it, he grew up in it, and as he came to America. And he also, in his international studies, where he got his degrees in the Soviet, looking at the models of the Chinese concentration camps. What made my blood run cold is he said, this is absolutely a Trojan horse. This whole thing is designed, and he documented the gulags that are being set up for those in the West, and I'm sure it'll be set up in the UK as well. Okay,
that those got my name above the door, I'm sure.
Yeah, they are taking people and labeling them what's called HR, or high risk individuals. He said those high risk people will be marked with a green tag, and they will be monitored until the point where the high risk, and they say high risk because they are the ones openly, vocally opposing the vaccination campaign agenda. The high risk, he said, will be eventually put into these large internment camps. And he gave me the whole documents. I have the documentation of this. It made me, well, this is as real as it gets.
Please send it to me, Kate Shemirani at gmail.com. That would be great. I mean, I myself, I was picked up outside Westminster by a terrorism unit, and I was just there. I was actually just on an interview in my high heels, a dress, and you can't be held for more than 24 hours without charge unless it's a high up police officer extends it. They extended it. I was 32 hours in there. My house was raided with an unsigned search warrant. I still don't have that laptop back, and all because you tell the truth. But you can see exactly that this is happening, and you'll go to bed one night, it'll be dark, and then when you wake up, some of your neighbors will be missing. That's what used to happen.
Exactly what happened.
And they're already. I have a patient who is a senior teacher, and she kind of filters stuff to me, and she said, and I'd already seen it from other teachers, and I reported on it a while ago, that in the schools now, part of the curriculum is to teach the children that if any family member or friends are talking about conspiracy theories, that being that it's not in line with the government narrative, they can go to the police or they can go to their teacher. So they're already telling the children this, just like they did in Soviet Russia and Germany. You know, Hitler's Youth, they used to like hand their parents in. But then she came to me a little while ago and she said to me, she'd just done a training day and all of the teachers were told that they must tell the senior teacher, the principal, if any of their friends or family are conspiracy theorists, they must divulge this because it would mean they're at risk. So they even this is exactly Soviet Russia. It's exactly Mao's China.
Exactly what Igor was saying.
Exactly, the Khmer Rouge. Yeah. It's everything. It's all the same thing. The Nazis. It's the same thing.
Yeah. What you have to understand too is how this will be implemented. And like Igor told me, he's Dr. Shepard. He said, "Listen, this is an absolute script that's been prepared for the last decade." He says, "I've been monitoring it and watching it. Now I have to speak up, or this country and the West is actually doomed." He said, "What will happen is this: the first wave of vaccines, especially in America, are to target the teachers and the first responders. That's by design. Those will be the first ones getting ill, and that's what will cause chaos." Now, he says, this is because of the time release of this, and the actual press releases have already been prepared for 6 months down the road. Into next June, July, you'll be hearing that this third wave, they're calling it, will be even more deadly. There will be 21% of the people taking the vaccine dropping dead. And guess what? The rhetoric is it's mutated thanks to the people, because of the people who refuse the vaccine. They're totally going to blame it on those people that are anti-vax. Now, you already see this happening with the measles, mumps, rubella crowd. Oh, my goodness, don't put my child at risk by not having your child vaccinated. That's ridiculous because if the vaccine is so powerful to protect you, what does it matter if an unvaccinated kid is there? Right? But see, so it goes back to their whole rhetoric, and I'm telling you, I was stunned. I had high-level meetings yesterday here in Utah, getting some grassroots action, because this is no longer a fence-sitting thing. People listening to this here in America, or a listening audience, if you've always said, "Well, it can't be that bad," think again. It's worse than what we've been telling you. The agenda is happening. If you think that it's bad now in things being shut out because people are wearing masks, wait till people really start dying by the tens of thousands, if not millions. And that's what's going to happen because of this vaccine agenda. And that's the first step. They'll blame it all on those who, we're not achieving herd immunity, they're going to tell us. We have to have 95% vaccinated. If you refuse, then you need to be quarantined in one of our special camps. That's how they're going to sell it. And I mean, it makes all the sense in the world to me.
Well, that's their agenda.
That's their agenda, yes.
Through history. We're still here. We're not going with that agenda. And
the wild card.
I try and always stay in the light of. It's like a gentleman said this to me in a political party. He's chair of the English Democrats. He said, when you look at the herd, and the herd are being pursued, the herd will be running closely in one direction, and in a split second, they can change direction. And we have to really, really put our faith in mankind here, that they will say we're not going to do this, and that the cops are all first line response. When they start dying of it, people. In the UK in the 1800s, we had the smallpox, and they came out and they had this smallpox vaccine, and they first made it that you had to have all your children vaccinated. It was mandatory 3 months, and then they made it all children under 15 had to be vaccinated, and they made it free so all the poor people could afford it, could have it. Sorry. And then what happened was the children started to die after the vaccine. And they made it, if you wouldn't have your child vaccinated, you could pay a hefty fine, which was apparently about half of the average man's salary, and or go to prison. And people did go to prison. And then you had the birth of the first anti-vax movement in the UK. And because they didn't have cameras in those days, there are sketches. And the people, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have mobiles, they didn't have anything like that. But they were out in their thousands on the streets, and the police were out with truncheons, battering them, just the same as what we see today. And it was that challenging that eventually it was no longer mandatory. And I think we have to stay in the light and say we're gonna stand together on this. People are dying, we're not going to do it. And I think we have to put our faith in one another. Good against evil, light against dark, God against Satan. I think we have to keep pushing forward, because in any battle, I was reading the Art and War a long time ago, but any battle, not everybody knows all the plans in case you get caught and compromised, and you never have one weapon of destruction in case it fails. You'll have several. Yes, I agree. We are in the valley, and it's the 12th hour, and the batons are drawn, and we're surrounded. But that doesn't mean that the battle's over. Yes, I think a lot of people are going to die, and that is prophesized. But I certainly am not going to die on my knees.
No, not at all. I was also, we don't normally watch the news, but my wife and I were just scanning channels, and there was this big, a major news release of the Pfizer factory. All of these vaccines being packed in their dry ice container, loaded onto special refrigerated boxcars by United Press International (UPS) trucks. So these UPS trucks are all pulling out of the main distribution center, going to all points across the country, all guarded by platoons of U.S. Marshals and military police, heading out to all points. And here in Utah, we're expecting to get our first shipment, coming in tomorrow, actually coming from the central point, all by armed military processionals and guards. I don't know about you, April Renee, but I'm going to be there to pass out protest anti-vax, and maybe I'll be arrested. I don't know, but people have got to be awake. This is absolute nonsense. You want to be vaccinated for?
It's interesting, isn't it, that you need, if people cannot see that it's got to be guarded like that, almost like it's a weapon of mass destruction, and you have all your guards around it, then God help them literally. God help them literally. And for those
talk about propaganda, Katie. I mean, I looked at my wife and even Joan, who's not really that conspiracy theorist back. She looked and says, "Wow, this is all stage propaganda. Here's all of these people that they had masked up with their mask, and they're sitting there literally crying and shouting, 'Oh, salvation! We're going to get back to normal. This is salvation.'" And they're trumpeting it like, wow, and oh, can't wait. It's such a propaganda machine. Not one person coming on saying, beware of this. Not one broadcast of the scientific papers of Dr. Lyons and others. And my goodness, where's the informed consent? It's all such political driven nonsense. Propaganda is the best way to describe it. It's stunning.
But this is the people who don't know God, and they, all of the other news channels, BitChute, Brighteon, Brand New Tube, they're all, they've got massive followings. They're printing it. Everyone knows. If you only watch the mainstream media and you only read the newspaper, it's a wag the dog scenario. Mm-hmm. You'll think that that's the truth. The more you go down that rabbit hole, and even looking at Spanish flu, I think we talked about this the last time I was on. They just brought radar in. All of the radar operators were getting sick because you change the frequency of the earth. It's not good for us. And then the people were coming out of war. They'd eaten lots of canned foods, which destroy the zinc. Our mast cells in our lungs need zinc. So you're elderly and you're very young with developing immune systems are going to get sick if you're deficient in zinc. 2.7 billion people in the world are zinc deficient. And then you had the military were vaccinated, but then most of the people that, and then you had, of course, all the people that died of bacterial lung infections from wearing masks. But the majority of the deaths from Spanish flu occurred in the hospitals. And they were all given a new experimental drug, and they were given 1,400 milligrams of this drug every hour for 12 hours. It was a drug that was owned by Bayer. It didn't have a license. And these patients in the hospitals all died of wet lungs and hemorrhaging. So they had fluid in the lungs and they were hemorrhaging. What was the drug that they were given? Huge doses, 1,400 milligrams every hour for 12 hours. Aspirin. What does aspirin do? Causes you to hemorrhage.
Yeah,
I would absolutely go as far as to say, again, my opinion, I bet you all those people died from aspirin overdose. And was it a mistake, or was it just another big push at a cull of the population using the vaccine of that time, which was the aspirin drug?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, IG Farben connects to that with the Rockefeller cartel, because they funded IG Farben into doing all this. And that's the origins, really the beginnings of what now becomes Pfizer and this mass vaccination campaign right now. You follow the trail back to IG Farben and really the Bush family, the Prescott Bush before the father of George Herbert Walker Bush. All of this, it really does start to connect the dots. Now here, I have in my library this book by Dr. Patricia McBean, and I also have reprinted another book called The Horrors of Vaccination. Dr. McBean and others, her parents and others back in 1919 actually did the medical sleuthing and presented the findings in a compendium book to President Woodrow Wilson in an official ceremony in the Rose Garden in the year 1921. I have copies of all this, and they conclusively proved just exactly what you said, Kate. There was this serum put out and it was promoted as a typhus fever vaccine, promoted to protect the people from all the troops coming home from the trenches of World War I, the Great War. Typhus fever was such a terrible specter to protect the people in the big cities, especially of America, Canada, and London. This vaccine was massively injected, and Dr. McBean conclusively proves in the first wave of deaths were all those people that came sick with they had the typhus fever vaccine. And from there, it was the second wave was caused by mask wearing. Okay, so yeah, it's all there in the medical history and literature.
And we have to gauge from that. We must stay positive. You know, I was reading this. It was actually a PhD article. It wasn't just somebody, tree hugging with a feather in their hair. And it was about measuring, what we resonate at, and all of the low emotions. And we know this. We know that when we're anxious, when we're depressed, when we are resentful, when we're jealous, it lowers it pushes our thyroid down, raises our adrenals. When it's like a seesaw, when your thyroid's down, your adrenals are up, and vice versa. So when all this cortisol being released, when you're in any of those emotions, is your fright and flight chemicals, and that causes all hardening, which is why dis-ease sets in. And so we know that all those emotions are what make you sick. And even the telomeres on the end of your DNA, there was a study done in the 60s. Every time the cell divides, the telomeres snap off, and that's really how you measure aging. And it was proven that the thing that affects these telomeres the most isn't, clean water, clean air, good food. It's actually our emotions. Do we feel loved? Do we feel appreciated? Do we belong? And so if we are being kept with all this propaganda, this wag the dog in the mainstream media, and what we're seeing, people wearing masks, that thinking our neighbors are going to kill us if they even look at us, then it's going to put us in that fright and flight mode. And we're going to resonate at a really low frequency. Whereas when we're joyful and we're hugging one another and we're among friends and family and we're happy, we resonate at over 200 hertz. So it's all together. So we have to kind of stay in that, where we just go, you know what, we're not doing any of what you're telling us to. We're not going to do it. We're not being part of it. And I've upset the Jewish community already. So, hey ho, I may as well upset them some more. They were very offended. And there was about 3 articles in the Jewish Chronicle in the UK, because I'd actually said, when are people going to wake up? When they're on the cattle trucks or when they're getting in the showers? Referring to the camps. And of course, we now, our homes are now, the cattle trucks. We don't really need to go anywhere, telling people to stay in their houses. But when I even went, there was a gentleman, they said he was a Holocaust denier, and he went to prison. And all he'd done some maths. And yes, the Jewish people were persecuted and murdered, but so were the gypsies, and so were the elderly and the disabled. They were, even epileptics. Thousands of disabled children and young adults were murdered by the nurses of the Third Reich. And the entire gypsy community was obliterated. Russians, Polish, the blacks, the gays. It wasn't just the Jewish people. They don't own the Holocaust. And we've had Rwanda. We've had Iraq, Afghanistan. We've had former Yugoslavia. We've had all of the Muslim wars all over.
Let me just jump in.
So
more than any of that, the true Holocaust.
The creators. So, I don't believe anything I read anymore. I don't believe any of the history, because history is written by the victor. Right. So I don't believe the numbers that they are telling me. I just don't believe it anymore.
Okay, True has something to say.
Let's not forget this. More than any other Holocaust is the extent that Alexander Solzhenitsyn put out about the Jewish. It's not Jewish. It's really caused by who are the Cheka, who are the Bolshevik under Stalin. 21 million Christians. 21 million Christians. We forget that. The media just glosses over that, don't they? That this is an attack on Christianity, and it is today exactly that. I want to just, I know we're getting close to the end, but I want to also just alert listeners to Klaus Schwab and his agenda. If you haven't heard of Klaus Schwab, you better get a handle on him.
Absolutely. Okay. I've read it. I've seen it. It's like, I think if he really does exist, how come he's still walking and someone's not, taking him off and buried him under the patio somewhere?
Well, it goes back to, again, I'm just going to say this. He appears after 33 years. He was born in 1938. His parents are high-level SS. Probably the top of the food chain, really the power brokers behind Adolf Hitler and all of Hitler's inner core. Herr Schwab headed up a group of top scientists, went out to under the ice pack of Antarctica. And this is all documented now, folks. Just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it isn't real. They called New Schwabland. They're named them after the name of the family Schwab. And this is what happened. The top scientists built this enclave, New Schwabland. And this is where I believe Klaus Schwab came from. Nobody knows where he went to school. Nobody knows where he received all of his honorary doctorates, really. He shows up in 1971, 33 years after his birth, with all this privilege in a worldwide setting. He's now the head of the World Economic Forum. This man has 17 honorary doctorates, folks. You don't get this and get this position just accidentally. Find out what this guy's all about. It's the core of Nazi Germany, the Schwab family. Follow it. Learn about it. Everything that Adolf Hitler did and Joseph Goebbels was all basically, they were just following the play of the Schwab family. This is the guy that's in charge of this COVID nonsense and the whole vaccine rollout, directed by the World Economic Forum, Event 201 in New York, the Pierre Hotel, all a script by Klaus Schwab. Read his book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Read about what he wants to see in the year 2030, which he said also is a code. 2030, 2030. They all run in numeric with this secret society of high Nazis. They believe in numerology. 2/3, 2 and 3 is sacred to them. Divide 2 by 3, and what do you get? an endless array of 666s. Okay? This is a satanic agenda to have happen by the year 2030. If you don't wake up as a Christian now, go in the cattle cars, okay? Go to the showers because you will die. You better listen to this and wake up right now and say, not on our watch, not in my neighborhood, not in my house. Okay? That's what I wanted to say. I'll let it go at that.
Amen to that.
Thank you. Thank you. Kate, we got to close in about 2 minutes. Do you have any final words, sweetheart?
Thank you so much for having me back on. I'm up and running again, a wonderful Christian family. I have a wonderful new laptop, so I'm setting up everything now. Please do give your other guests today my email. I'd really like to connect and speak some more on Zoom. It would be great for us to do an interview together as well.
Yes, I will definitely do that, sweetheart. Thank you so much for being our guest the last 2 weeks. And I do want to leave any listeners, as well as you, Kate, just give you a little bit of encouragement here, because our support link on our vacinfo.org gives you an introduction to the ministry that Father's bringing so many of his kindergarten Christians. I call Christianity kindergarten. That's where I began also. Now we're at a whole level to battle the enemy for him, to be prepared for his return. So if you go to the support link, you can learn more about that. Brother Brandon Muchmore has an amazing YouTube channel. If you really want to connect with what's going on with the whole COVID that you're open to, as well as scripture in the book of Revelation, putting it all together. His YouTube channel is #MuchMoreTruth. We also have we have Zoom fellowship. So literally you can get on and we can see each other's face to face, all our brothers and sisters on Zoom throughout the week. Anyway, just go to the support link. You can learn about everything. We are not afraid of the enemy. We know that this battle is way too big for us, and we stand on the light. We stand on positiveness. We stand on his inspired word. Hallelujah. You're listening to Vic Fellowship, and our shows can be accessed on the front page of our vacinfo.org website. On the belly of a little boy flexing his muscles. We're on every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Our contact number is 800-939-8227. If you have any questions about today's show, you can call the voicemail line 862-800-6805. Leave your name, your question, and let them know it's for our What in the Cell is Going On radio show. We thank Progressive Radio Network for allowing us to give you this uncompromised truth, and Yah bless.